When people looked at the sleek headquarters of Northbridge Dynamics, they saw polished glass walls, smiling executives, and flashy product launches that dominated business magazines. But what they never saw was the quiet engineer working from a modest home office hundreds of miles away whose invisible work held the company's most valuable systems together every single day. My name was Evelyn Hart, and although my name appeared on almost no internal directory, I had spent nearly 3 years designing the security architecture that protected every financial transaction flowing through Northbridge's flagship logistics platform, choosing anonymity over recognition because solving impossible problems had always mattered far more to me than collecting titles or applause. The executive who trusted me was Chief Operations Officer Daniel Reeves, a thoughtful leader who valued careful engineering over office politics and who often reminded me during our private video meetings. The strongest foundation is the one nobody notices until someone tries to remove it, words that quietly shaped every decision I made while building the platform's layered security. Together we created a sophisticated verification framework capable of detecting unauthorized structural changes before they could become disasters. And although very few employees even knew I existed, Daniel always made certain my work received the authority it required behind the scenes, allowing me to focus entirely on building resilient systems instead of navigating corporate rivalries. Everything changed without warning when Daniel was hospitalized after a sudden medical emergency, leaving the company without the only executive who fully understood how deeply the security architecture was woven into every operational process. And almost immediately ambitious executives began competing for influence inside the temporary leadership vacuum. Among them was Victor Sloan, the newly appointed Director of Business Transformation, a polished speaker whose presentations were filled with fashionable management slogans but whose understanding of complex technology barely extended beyond colorful dashboards. And from his very first leadership meeting he announced, "Visibility creates accountability." While demanding endless reports from employees he barely knew instead of taking time to understand the systems they maintained. Within days Victor launched a company-wide restructuring initiative that celebrated aggressive cost reductions and contractor eliminations as symbols of decisive leadership, proudly assuring department heads that simplifying the organization would increase efficiency even though he had never reviewed the technical dependencies hidden beneath those budget lines. Because my consulting agreement had been intentionally placed under a specialized compliance division years earlier, Victor initially could not even determine who I was, yet he repeatedly referred to me as an unnecessary external resource, while promising executives that removing legacy contractors would demonstrate his commitment to modernization. Late one Friday afternoon a brief calendar invitation appeared in my inbox requesting a meeting titled Role Clarification, and the message contained no greeting, no explanation, and no indication that anyone had actually reviewed the responsibilities attached to my work, making its purpose painfully obvious before the meeting even began. I calmly organized my records without preparing any defense because experience had taught me that decisions driven by ego are almost always finalized before conversations begin. And when Saturday morning arrived I walked into Victor's office determined to remain professional regardless of what happened next. Victor greeted me with the confident smile of someone convinced he had already won, sliding a neatly printed termination notice across the table before declaring, "Northbridge appreciates your previous contributions, but your contract no longer aligns with our operational strategy. So please remove every company-related file from your personal devices and confirm completion by the end of today." I quietly read the document from beginning to end before asking only one question: "Would you mind confirming these instructions in writing with your signature?" And after he eagerly signed the document without hesitation, I thanked him politely, collected the paperwork, and walked away without arguing because I knew facts would eventually speak far louder than emotions. Back at my apartment I brewed a fresh cup of coffee, opened my workstation one final time, and carefully followed every instruction exactly as written by deleting every authorized local development copy, design draft, testing environment, and technical notebook that legally belonged on my own equipment under the terms of my consulting agreement. What Victor never understood was that the operational platform had been intentionally designed with automated integrity verification approved years earlier by Daniel, meaning any significant change involving privileged architectural credentials would automatically trigger a comprehensive compliance review instead of quietly accepting unauthorized alterations. The automated verification sequence activated less than 2 hours after my credentials disappeared from the approved engineering chain, prompting Northbridge's primary financial partner to suspend several high-value transaction approvals until the system's integrity could be independently verified by the original certified architect responsible for its design. Inside corporate headquarters, confusion spread rapidly as finance teams struggled to explain why routine operations were suddenly restricted despite no visible software outage. while Victor confidently assured everyone the temporary interruption was merely an administrative delay that would resolve itself within minutes without realizing the automated review had already expanded beyond his authority. Daniel unexpectedly returned to the office early the following Monday after reading urgent compliance notifications forwarded directly to his secure executive account. Immediately recognizing that the alerts referenced architectural safeguards only he and I fully understood because we had personally designed them years earlier during regulatory planning sessions. Entering the executive conference room with remarkable composure, he placed the compliance report beside Victor's signed termination directive and quietly asked, "Who instructed the certified architect to erase active development resources before completing a formal transition plan?" Leaving the room completely silent as senior managers exchanged increasingly uncomfortable glances. Victor attempted to defend his decision by insisting that contractors could be replaced at any time without affecting strategic operations. But Daniel calmly projected detailed system documentation onto the conference room display, revealing dozens of interconnected verification layers that depended upon properly documented transitions rather than abrupt executive orders issued without technical review. The company's legal advisors carefully examined every timestamp, authorization record, and signed instruction before concluding that established governance procedures had been ignored at multiple levels. And the atmosphere changed instantly from confident management discussion to serious corporate risk assessment as executives finally understood the consequences of careless decision-making. Later that afternoon, I received a secure message from Daniel asking whether I would be willing to perform an independent integrity assessment solely to help stabilize the platform for the benefit of customers who depended upon uninterrupted service, emphasizing that my participation would occur under temporary legal authorization with complete documentation this time. After reviewing the request, I accepted because protecting the reliability of systems affecting thousands of businesses mattered more to me than personal resentment. And during the following several hours, I carefully validated every security layer before preparing a detailed technical report that objectively explained the sequence of events without assigning blame or exaggerating anyone's mistakes. The completed assessment confirmed that every safeguard had functioned exactly as intended by detecting an unauthorized administrative disruption and preventing potentially unsafe operations from continuing until qualified oversight returned, demonstrating that resilient engineering succeeds not because it prevents every mistake but because it limits the damage when mistakes inevitably occur. Regulatory reviewers praised the transparency of the verification process while the company's financial partner restored normal operational status after receiving complete documentation. And throughout the entire review, my report remained strictly factual, allowing evidence rather than emotion to determine the outcome. Following several days of internal investigation, Victor was removed from all operational responsibilities pending a formal governance review after independent investigators concluded that critical decisions had been made without sufficient technical consultation or procedural compliance, permanently damaging his reputation as an executive who valued appearances over understanding. Daniel later contacted me with a sincere apology for allowing organizational confusion to place my work and professional credibility at unnecessary risk, explaining that the board wanted to establish a permanent technical architecture office where expertise would be properly recognized instead of hidden beneath complicated administrative structures. I thanked Daniel for his honesty but explained that recognition alone had never been my motivation because the greatest satisfaction came from building systems capable of protecting people even when their creators were absent, a philosophy that had guided my career long before Northbridge existed and would continue wherever I worked next. Looking back, I realized the real lesson had nothing to do with revenge or corporate politics, but with the importance of respecting knowledge, documenting responsibilities, and remembering that invisible professionals often carry the greatest weight inside organizations despite receiving the least public attention. As the evening sun faded beyond my office window, I closed my laptop knowing the platform was stable once again and that integrity had quietly accomplished what pride never could, leaving behind a story not about defeating an enemy but about the enduring value of professionalism, preparation, and accountability in a world too often distracted by titles and appearances. Please subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and family. We create entertaining and inspiring stories for our viewers, and your support helps us continue making great content for you.